He festers in the darkness and the depths of your mind. He can dead in all of your mental senses. Leave you just dumb and blind. He can make you weak, make you sick, make you do anything evil you can find. He is the deadly deceiver. And he works through your mind. Well, he can use his quiet power to persuade you to sin, and all it takes is just a whisper of his suggestion from him. And that's, my friend, that's where his dirty work ends. For he just sets his plan in motion, but you carry it to the end. His craft is in your weakness. The only reason he exists. Every time you give in to his lie, and you make you resist. But don't think that you're the only victim of his sick disease, like a puppet on the string. The whole world dances to the wicked song that he sings. Now lying is his special. He's his expertise. The truth he don't need no proof. He's got the power to deceive. The whole world has become his workshop. And the lamb in the game to him. All the church, religion, science, or truth. Nothing is sacred. No. Nothing is sacred to him. Whenever man is straight, you can bet his ass away. Oh, can't you see? He was that snake there in the garden, the one that tricked around and Eve. He was loving outside the clock, and that image on the wall. Everyone would you believe? He's the piece of a revelation, being not mistaken, the real Satan. That's him. Don't waste your time in just thinking he won't tell you a bit of good. Cause his only life is in your mind. He's only understood if you would just start believing in truth and reality. The take his life away, but as long as you keep using him, he'll keep using you. You decide. Does he go or does he stay?
الحمد لله رب العالمين وبسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us this morning for All Things Human. Alhamdulillah, we just listened to the first portion. I'm going to call it the first half. I think there's a second part. I mean, I know that there's a second part, but I believe it is the second and last portion of it. I believe it was Harlem, New York. Don't hold me to it. Circa 1984, thereabouts. Motivation and sacrifice. Inshallah, next week we'll hear the last portion, or the next portion, which is about the same, about 45 minutes or so. And life goes on. What we do on Wednesdays is we just make sure that we get our dose of Imam W.D. Muhammad, I'm saying, on the Clear Understanding broadcast channels. Make sure that Wednesday, that's what's happening. So we make sure always we hear something, get something from the Imam, One of the advice many, many years ago from Sister Salwa Abdullah. We keep her in our dua as well. Uh, she said her husband, Sheikh Mahmoud Rahimahullah, he said the way to study the Imam is to listen to him until you don't hear anything new. Then you know that you understand, meaning that you can just about follow the idea. It's like, okay, well, that's not new. That's not new. Listen to it till you don't hear nothing new in what was said, then you can pretty much say you own it. So even that broadcast, that piece that we just played, I'm gonna finish, get out of these comments right now. But when you get out of that, June 13, June 2013, we did air it, but I mean, what was that 8 years ago? And so, mashallah. So, I mean, when things cycle around only like that, it's like, yeah, we will be listening for our lifetime to get more understanding what the Imam is giving. So, very comfortable about getting that. Now, that being said, we are spending less time and we're starting later on the Wednesday, just in case you haven't caught on to that yet. Spending less time and starting later on all things human. So therefore, we're not as liberal with adding your comments at the beginning of the broadcast. You have to save that for the Saturdays and Sundays. You have more opportunity as well, because we want to just go ahead and make a contribution to the ongoing topic for this particular platform, which currently is Satan, Hypocrites, History, and the Word of God. This was sparked by one of the lectures of the Imam. Frankly, I got to tell you, I don't always keep track of, okay, it started on this day, this week, and it was this subject, and the Imam said this. Sometimes I don't even remember where some of these subjects started, but I get to the point where, yeah, you got to cover that. That's got to be known. We have such a world of things that need to be known. It's like, it doesn't matter where you start. It's just, it's significant. We got a lot to go. So let me get out of that very comment itself and do what I have to do to make that contribution for this morning. Okay, so keeping with that, let me connect you with last week. Last week, we basically ended on a word, enantiodromia. Enantiodromia. And we're only going to be spending about a half hour this morning. I'll seek to restrict myself when we get the alerts from the Blog Talk channel. Basically, we're going to wind up there. So that puts us out of here at 7:30 Pacific time. So you do the math where you are. Enantiodromia. Originally it's from the early 20th century, and it's from Greek. That is, it started the usage. It's from Greek, literally meaning running in opposite directions. The tendency of things to change into their opposites, especially as a supposed governing principle of natural cycles and of psychological development. This is to write that word down, be in touch with it, because that is the principle that is governing this world. But let me keep going. Especially as a supposed governing principle of natural cycles and of psychological development, enantiodromia is something is similar to the principle of equilibrium in the natural world, in that any extreme is opposed by the system in order to restore balance. When things get to their extreme, they turn into their opposite. A little bit about worldview. I mean, and all this ties into worldview. That is, the way you look at the world is, quote unquote, your reality. The way you look at the world is your reality. Whatever. If you have someone who is a nihilist, they look at the world in a particular way. An atheist, they look at the world in a particular way. A scientist, they look at the world in a particular way. A person who believes in God, they look at the world in a particular way. A materialist, a capitalist, a communist, or whatever. Once a person has chosen that label as their identity, then everything is filtered through, and their behavior reflects that worldview, that way of seeing, way of thinking, and self-identification, blah, blah. That's it. Now, if you haven't consciously, and most of the society hasn't consciously decided who they are, most persons' identities have been decided for them. They have been told, this is what you are, and this is who you are. And once you've been told that, and you accept that, then that sets you up for, sign stimulus is one thing. These are things that you should own these things to know. These are things that you need to know, so that you know that you are not Pinocchio being, pulled by somebody else pulling your strings, if you will. If you're not conscious, somebody else is pulling your strings. If you don't know why you decide, or why you feel, or why you emote, or why you are motivated in one way versus another, then you're not in control. Okay, so one of the things that we're working on at this moment is try to get to understand what are some of the modes of control. Okay, the big mode of control for these conversations is to understand culture. Is to understand culture and stop. If it's like, yeah, I know what culture. Do you? You got slow up. Do you really know what culture is? We've spent a lot of time on it, but most times when people think about culture, you're thinking about the aesthetic culture. You're thinking about poetry, music, clothes, whatever, songs, whatever, those kinds of things. Literature. Did I say food? But no. That culture is the whole thing. When you really understand, culture is the whole thing. It's the entire environment, and it's what makes the environment what it is. Then that culture becomes the dominating force. The new movie Free Guy, the old movie The Truman Show. It's saying that very thing. Dark City. I've repeated this too many times, so you should have gotten it by now and looked at. Oh, The Village. I gotta tell you, The Village. M. Night. That his name. M. Night Shyamalan, or is it Shyamalan, or whatever his name is. The name of the movie is The Village. You wanna see a parable, Aesop's fable type description of what I'm trying to say to you right now? Watch that movie, and you'll get what I'm saying, because they created an environment that controlled everybody in it, and the only person that was free from it. I mean, the movie's so old now. If you haven't seen it by now, you may not have time to see it. Okay, spoiler alert. That the only person that was really free was the blind girl. She was the only one that was free. So now, come on. That tells you something right there. Because she was not seeing the world that was created around her. So I'll leave that right there. But the point is that the village itself, you can take that as another word for culture. You can take that as another word for culture. And so the village was created, and the village was controlling the people who were born in it, but who were not aware of its sources. And I've said a lot regarding that. We are protected by something we cannot see, that comes from something that we do not understand. This is Dr. Peterson's statement. But let's get back to this. So the point is to understand that once a system gets created, and so once you're acculturated to it, enculturated by it, and the Quran says everyone acts according to the way that they've been acculturated, the way that they've been socialized, 1784 in the Quran. Why? Because once the culture gets into you, that is the features of culture and the impact of culture, the nature of culture. The Imam was speaking about the wombs and babies and mothers and the like. We all are babies. All are babies to the cultural womb that we were born in. And so we have this automatic kind of response. It's the nature of culture. The idea is, if you can get a good culture, right? وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ تَعْمَرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. When you get that right, then the natural, automatic, reflexive behavior is going to be good, because the person's born in it. They are born in an environment that evokes and promotes the best in the nature of the person. Quran 30:30. If you can get into that and elaborate that, you'll see the potency of what I'm saying, inshallah. Because what it says essentially, fitratullahi lati fatara nasa alayha. When you understand that, you'll understand that, look, your nature is as Allah created it. The nature of the cosmos is as Allah has created it. And when you stay in touch with the natural order, and when you connect with the natural order with your own nature, then that's going to be that's going to bring about the growth of the best in you, which is Allah's will in us, is our excellence, right? But that excellence has to be stimulated, provoked, and nurtured by an environment that respects that. So that's in the larger macrocosm. Yes, but then when you come to the smaller microcosm, you speak of it as culture. The culture ummah. This is where the terminology shifts. Is very important. The ummah. We need to build ummah. I refer you to Dr. Ismail Raja'i Faruqi, rahimahullah alayhi, his book Tawheed: Its Implications for Thought and for Life. You want to understand. Okay, well, what is ummah really? I mean, so the word is not just a cliche in our minds. You know that, because now once you get ummah, and so ummah encompasses what the English word culture speaks to. I heard another term used recently. Someone talks about communitas. So, if you look at that as an intellectual word, look it up and see what they say is communitas, right? The point is that ummah is the word from Allah in the Quran that takes in all of it. The best of communitas, the best of culture is in ummah. So Allah tells us to build ummah. Now, so when you have these others created and fashioned and formed upon the ideas of man, no matter how excellent they are, if they fall short of what Allah has ordered, well, then they're not going to achieve the full aim as Allah intended. But alhamdulillah, there are certain worlds, as it were, socially speaking, that are better than others because they are operating upon higher ideals. And yes, America is one of them. With all of the shortcomings, America is one of them. And it grounded in the idea, we hold these truths to be self-evident, et cetera, and the ideas about freedom. But there's a little satanic kernel in there, which inshallah we're going to keep moving forward and talk about. So the idea is that once a culture gets formed and people get born in that culture, then people will automatically have the habits by virtue of their acculturation. They will have the habits that the mold of their culture has, let's call it, embedded, infused in them. And so people act naturally in accordance with the culture that they have been cultivated in. However, if that culture has a satanic element in it, then people who have been acculturated in that culture that carries in it a satanic seed, well, that's a problem. And that's what we're talking about right now. And this is a part of the deception of this world, is that everything seems to be all right. Everything, you walk out of your house, you get in your car, you drive, you sit in the park, have a picnic, and then you listen to your music, you enjoy yourself, you take a vacation, and it's like it's all good. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, frankly, I mean, honestly, it's like there are certain animals in the zoo. I mean, I can't think exactly like an animal in a zoo, but I can imagine that, certain animals, they continue to be fed. There's no real threats. And especially if you have game preserves, you have a latitude of movement where you don't feel like you're confined or what have you. It's like, it can be all right. But when you draw back, it's, you're really in a cage and you don't know you're in a cage. You're really not free, but you feel like you're free. And that's what most of this society of human beings, we are in that condition until you set free, until you become free, until you are set free by Allah to be able to see the cage, where you're able to see the boundaries that have been set for you. That's what we're talking about. So let's move on. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the real world Satans. The real world Satan. This subject is not close to done. So I don't want you to think that this is going to be in there. No. Allahu Alam. The real world Satan's strategy is to create a strategic problem. That is the culture that we live in, the zookeepers of this world. Okay, I'm putting it that way because of the analogy I used. The zookeepers of this world, the way that they, the picture is coming even stronger. It's like, just look at, you got to get the lions in the cage. You got to get the lions out of the cage. You have these otherwise dangerous animals, but you have to have conditioned them in a certain way in order for them to be able to serve the way you want them to serve, for them to perform the way you want them to perform. But you still have to respect the fact that, this creature will get you if it gets off of the mode. Now, I have to say this, that those people who get these different conspiratorial names, I'm just going to say Satan. But so you heard different names for them. Yeah, they're called the this and they're called the that. What have you? These people, they see the masses of people as a beast. See the masses of people as a beast that has to be controlled. The masses of people, and I want you to understand that means that the zookeepers that I'm speaking of, I know I'm being kind of I don't know, rhetorically blunt in that sense. I could use higher language to describe them, but I'm not going to, even though I speak about them in that way, I'm not taking them lightly at all. Them old punks, man. No, these people are serious. Imam Muhammad rahimahullah, one of the quotes from just today's lecture. The Imam said, the criminals that maintain their grip on society. This was this morning. The criminals that maintain their grip on society, they are not ignorant. They are wise. They are devils. He said that this morning, 40 years ago. Okay. We played it this morning from a lecture 40 years ago. 40. for decades. And that hasn't changed. And that was already existing before he said it. And we thank Allah that he illuminated us about it. So much more about it. Those you want to get ahead of me and you have those notes, because we're not going to, I don't believe we're going to touch on it much today. The logic of Heliopolis. Those of you who have those transcripts, that transcript that includes the logic of Heliopolis, is actually, you'll find it in, if you have the transcript from Imam Muhammad's address to the Imams, December, I think it was December like 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 1997 in Homewood, Illinois. But whenever I get to it, inshallah, perhaps next week. But if you want to get ahead of where I'm going, then you can, if you have that, then that's where you should go. The logic of Heliopolis. Okay, now back to the Imams, finishing the Imams. So it said, the criminals that maintain their grip on society, they are not ignorant, they are wise, they are devils. Okay. So I'll use those rhetorically blunt kind of terms, but we're not talking about, excuse the hood language. These are not suckers. These are the ones who make suckers, right? Satans, right? So let's understand that this beast that they have been controlling and they have had to control, the methodology that they use to control the beast, the mass public, which is and part of the message is that democracy is not the friend of these people. Democracy is a problem. Democracy and what it ostensibly or supposedly means or represents, if that could ever actually be realized, that's a problem for Satan. That's a problem for Satan. And that's a problem for people who want to operate that way. So, I mean, you look at right now, the whole manipulation of the vote, suppression of the vote. No, that's telling you. This is supposed to be done by people who are inside of the very political system that swear and be damned, as my mother would say, swear and be damned that we stand for America. Well, then why are you doing all this voter suppression and gerrymandering and trying to eliminate voting, literally speaking, right? It's like, yeah, that doesn't compute. But that's just a statement on politics side of it. And it falls right into what we're continuing to say right here. The real world Satans, meaning it's a plural, shayateen is a plural, all right? Their strategy is to create a strategic problem. Hold in your mind enantiodromia, how extremes become their opposites, right? So what they do, this is a manipulation of nature, human nature, and the laws of nature. Let me say it again. Enantiodromia, it said, especially as a supposed governing principle of natural cycles. Enantiodromia is similar to the principle of equilibrium in the natural world. Some of you are familiar with the representation of scripture and Satan. Whatever Allah does, Satan seeks to imitate it. Satan seeks to imitate it. See, nature is fixed, meaning nature is lawful. Nature is predictable. That's what makes science possible, right? Human nature, human nature is what human nature is, right? With all of its khair and shar as potential, right? The creation, the universe itself is what it is. Its laws of operation, etc. They are what they are. Now, good people can get that knowledge and use it for good. Bad people with bad intentions can get the same knowledge. The same knowledge is available to them. Even if they don't get it first, as the excellence, the inspiration comes to one who is inspired, but the one who is inspired is obligated to give it out publicly, just like sunshine. They give it out publicly. Well, who's in the audience? Good people and bad people. Okay, who's on earth? Good people and bad people. Who gets access to the information that comes from the study of human nature and the nature of creation? Good people and bad people. All right? And there's a different level of motivation in good people and in bad people. So, mashallah, in this case, the shayateen are the bad people. We're going to get deeper into whatever. Well, shaitan, is it a real person? We got that, inshallah. So let's just understand, there is a Satan. There is a plurality of shayateen also, all right? And they walk on two legs, and they operate in the world, and they influence institutions, systems, etc., etc. All right. So now let's talk about them, what they do. Even if you want to think about them as aliens, because they are aliens relative to the human nature. They exist. This is what they do. All right. And this is how they're operating in the world as it is right now. It has been as such. We quote from the Imam about the pendulum swing, very, very, very explicitly captures that point. Okay, so this is how so we're going into Satan's laboratory, right? He's going to his Satan's laboratory. He said, okay, well, we need to dominate right now, whatever it might, it's like the gathering of Satans. And so, okay, what are we going to do right now in order to get the kind of control we want to have over the people, the world, over the people right now? Okay, well, anybody got any ideas, right? Okay, the first principle is to create a strategic problem. You call them crisis, and we went through a lot in terms of talking about crisis. There's a big play on words in crisis and Christ. Christ and CRISIS. In fact, now just looking at the word again, you got ISIS in crisis. So it's like, listen, y'all. It's like we look, chess players, right? Chess players. You look at something, but you talk about making this move, that move. Listen, you can have one moment of distraction. You have one moment of looking away, thinking about something. Did I turn the water off or whatever? It's like, poof, checkmate, right? This is the world that you and I are living in. It's like you can look at something, you think you've seen it all, and then you look away, you miss something. All right, Fahim, let's go. All right, so the real world Satans, they have gathered. In my analogy, they have gathered together. Okay, what are we gonna do? Okay, everybody in the room knows. Okay, we already know. Here's the principle. So let's go back to basics. Let's stick with the fundamentals. Satan's, right? Okay, our fundamental is to create a strategic problem. All right. Okay, how many people are we trying to control? We're trying to control America. Then we need to create a strategic problem for Americans. If we're going to control Europe, we need to create a strategic problem for Europeans. We want to control Africa, we need to create a strategic problem for Africa. We want to control the islands, we need to create a strategic problem for the islands. You understand? We want to control Fahim, we got to create a strategic problem for Fahim. That's all this is. That's step one. Create a strategic problem. Now listen to this. We want to control the world. Create a strategic problem for the world. Is there any world problem right now? Maybe there's not just one world problem right now. But all you have to do is just look at the global issues. The global issues. And I'm saying we should look for the satanic fingerprint on all global issues. Okay, how do you see the satanic fingerprint? Okay, their strategy is create a strategic problem. Step 2, give birth to pairs of opposition. Enantiodromia.
90 seconds.
Okay, we only got 90 seconds. We can at least lay out the blueprint. Now, okay, what's the global problem? You pick one. Doesn't matter. It can be the environment. It could be coronavirus. It could be global economics, whatever. Trust me. Satan, Shaitan, the shayateen that we're talking about, they're not impacted the same way about none of these things. The way those who choose to be on one side or on the other are caught up. Okay, because Shaitan, he's holding the string that's doing the tick-tock, running one extreme to the other and the other to the other extreme. He's not even caught up in that. Okay. But his strategy for controlling the zoo is first create the strategic problem. The locus of the strategic problem is based on who it is that we're trying to control at each level: global, national, community, family, individual, whatever. It's like strategic problem. All right. Then create pairs of opposition. Give birth to opposition relative to the problem.
Seconds.
Okay, let's just take abortion as an example, right? You know, whatever, pro-life, the abortion, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to answer the question. I'm not even trying to get into it. I'm trying to point to the fact that somebody goes around, California analogy, setting fires, right? So they set the fires, and the fire being the strategic problem. Then we get a group of people. Okay, you're going to be the people on the right, and you're going to be the people on the left. But the people on the right, people on the left, they don't know. You are being created. You are the created opposition that we need. So the shayateen, he will fund both sides of the argument. He will provide supports for both sides of the argument. His main thing is to create a structure where you have opposition camps. That's what we need, shayateen. We just need opposition camps. It's like they're going to be on this side, they're going to be on that side. So we have talking heads on radio, TV, internet, talking heads on radio, TV, internet, and anybody comes out with a third alternative that we don't want them messing up the cha-cha, we cancel them out. We shadow ban them. It's like we don't want to hear whatever they have to say. The only ones we want to hear is the people who are on the right and the people on the left, and usually you're hearing extremes in both cases. You don't hear those quote unquote moderate voices, or they're not entertaining, or they're not well funded. Either way, it doesn't matter. But that's the Satan's methodology. Okay, now the Satan who created the strategic problem and then in turn created the opposition camps and get everybody else in the masses riled up by rallying with this one or rallying with that one or being confused about who they should be. Either way, you're still in control. That is, you're still being controlled. All right. Now, once you got the pairs of opposition, which is what I've just said, that third thing is also what I just said, is that manipulate both sides emotionally. So there's the three things. Create the strategic problem, create the opposition camps, and then manipulate both sides emotionally. That is, you're going to have the loudest voices are the ones who are most irrational, not crazy irrational, but their conviction and their energy is just keep going, right? They're not dumb. They're not ignorant because they couldn't be the voice for whoever they are, but they are emotionally driven, right? The emotion. Same way on the right, same way on the left, whichever opposition camp, right? All right. And when they go to extreme, and then when something super crazy happens on either side, where it's like, no, it's time, we're going to have to do something else. Well, then now the Satan who started the strategic problem, who created the opposition camps, who manipulated everybody emotionally, and you finally had this blow up scenario, then the Satan comes with a solution that he had prepared to say, I'll save you. And they will bring forward that answer, that individual, that savior of the scenario. And then people go back to sleep until it's necessary to create a new strategic problem. And the big wheels keep on turning, right? So inshallah, we'll follow up more with this next week, inshallah. All right, inshallah, everybody have a wonderful day. Allah's peace be on you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.